woo. Shan, thanks for being here on a Saturday afternoon. I first just want to get your thoughts on this ruling. What does it mean practically?
Practically speaking, it means that they need to not act so recklessly, and it serves as a safeguard against those sorts of really unconstitutional, illegal things, such as targeting people on the basis of their language or their appearance. It also means practically they'll need to be prepared. They have to do a little bit of homework to actually show why they are detaining people. And I might just add that, if all these allegations were true, that all these people, or the majority of them, are dangerous criminals, the probable cause really shouldn't be very hard to gather in those instances. So if they're fussing about having to gather that, kind of casts some questions on what kind of basis they're really using.
I want to listen to what Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons told Fox News earlier today. This is what he said.
ICE has always conducted good criminal and intelligence-based targeted enforcement, and we will continue to do that. We're pretty confident that when the Department of Justice and Department of Homeland Security appeals this, we will win. But this is just another attempt to stop President Trump from making America safe again and stopping what the American people want. ICE goes out there every day and does a lawful law enforcement mission.
So, Shan, we know the Trump administration is going to appeal. That was he made some arguments there about maybe what they might be saying. Obviously, the White House statement saying there's careful planning and execution that goes into these arrests, and that's something a judge would never understand, and that they don't have any jurisdiction here. Do you think that they have a case to be made on appeal?
Probably not. But they should have nothing to fear if it's really true that they have all this careful planning that goes into their raids, their detentions, etc. The point they're trying to make, the White House as well as the acting director there, about the federal judge has no business talking about immigration policy, he's right. But the judge isn't weighing in on immigration policy. He's weighing in on the law, he or her, the judge. And that's exactly what the judge should do. So they're trying to blur that either through ignorance or through some deliberate obfuscation there. It's not a question of the judge interfering with policy. It's a question of the judge interfering with lawless actions. That's what a court's supposed to look at.
Mm. And look, the order states, as you noted, there must be probable cause to detain someone. Also, that these individuals have to have access to an attorney. I'm curious, if you are here illegally, how might those rights, do people still have those rights no matter what? Or is it different when we're talking about immigration enforcement? How does the law pertain to them if they are here illegally?
So well, of course, there's a little bit of a chicken and egg question there. You have to first ascertain if they're here illegally.
Right.
And that determination in itself is part of the process normally, where you'd have them have a lawyer. They need to find out what the status is. They may have arguments to make. The government may say those are bogus arguments. That's really the threshold step we're missing to begin with, is the Trump administration just wants to declare people are here illegally with no test of that evidence. Assuming they had access to a lawyer, then there can be an evidence-based process for that. And absolutely, I mean, if they are in the normal system, they would have a right to a lawyer, and that's basically part of the problem here. I mean, to really drill down in the weeds, there are certain types of immigration procedures where it could be done on a very expedited removal basis if the person's only been here an X amount of time. But the broad question here, and I would say applies to the majority of people being caught up here, is this question of what kind of determination is even made that they're being legitimately caught up. And for that, they have to have access to lawyers. Judges have to be able to look at that, whether it's immigration judges or other federal court judges.
Yeah. Something else that caught my attention was that this ruling was specific to just the area that the judge is responsible for. It was limited in its scope. Earlier this week, we saw this birthright citizenship ruling, and that applied to, again, a very specific group of people, babies born after X date. This comes after the Supreme Court ruled to curb the lower court's power. So it would seem to me that they are trying to follow that in these rulings. Is that what you're gathering as well?
Oh, absolutely. And that's the maze, crazy quilt pattern that the Supreme Court is bringing upon the country is fine. So the judges, the federal district court judges are certainly going to obey this rule that says, okay, you can't do nationwide injunctions then, but they will continue to decide the cases that come before them. So you could just have a lot more cases that need to be brought. On the one hand, that may not be good for certain types of defendants, plaintiffs. It's a little bit harder for them to get access to law. It'd be easier if there's a uniform law imposed early. On the other hand, it's also a whole lot more work for the government having to defend all these individual types of cases across the country. And really, from the Supreme Court standpoint, again, it's quite puzzling. You see this in some of the dissents, but what is their big rush? I mean, they can allow the courts of appeals to weigh in on these questions rather than jumping in to try to decide this. To me, there was no real emergency for them. They overused the emergency docket. But unquestionably, the lower court judges are following that order. They'll only decide what's before them. They won't expand it against what the court said, which is they won't make nationwide injunctions.
All right, Shan Wu, always great to have you. Thanks for your time.
Good to see you.
You too.